are going to also commission the molecular diagnostics, genomic and molecular diagnostic lab, which of course will be open to all postgraduate students in the University of Lagos and outside the University of Lagos to be able to do state-of-the-art research. But I must say that the Medical Laboratory Science Council of Nigeria and SCDC have also approved this facility for COVID-19 diagnosis and screening. We are only waiting for the Lagos State government to include us in the network so that we can have the capacity to also release results. So thus far so good, the center is ready for state-of-the-art research for as many as our young people, especially the postgraduate students, the postdoctoral students, that cannot travel outside Nigeria. They have a facility that can compete very well with outside Nigeria for them to do a good research. So we are also now let me round up by saying that, Mr. Vice Chancellor, sir, our goal is to create a living web for genomic research in Nigeria. Recently, when they were creating a network for the monitoring of the variants of COVID-19, especially with the coming of the Delta and the monitoring of the genomic diversity, we also boldly registered the center to be part of that team, especially that we know that the University of Lagos is about to procure the new generation sequencing. And I'm so proud that we have such a Vice Chancellor that is so passionate about research that is making that happen. I was so excited when the Illumina were telling me that they are almost completing the arrangement with the University of Lagos to bring in the sequencer. So I want to appeal to the Vice Chancellor that whatever it will take, that should be motivated, so that the University of Lagos can contribute extensively to the various tracing of COVID-19 in Nigeria. I welcome you to this year's summer school. I welcome you to the opening ceremony. I welcome you to the inauguration of the center. And I welcome you again to the commissioning of the genomics and the molecular biology diagnostic and the molecular diagnostic laboratory. Thank you for the question.
Let me quickly say that this is an hybrid program, and it's our pleasure to say that the Vice Chancellor is joining us online. Please let's recognize all those who have taken time to be part of us online. Let's give them a round of applause. Thank you very much, Director. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, we will now listen to the remarks of the special guest of honor, Mr. Ernst, Deputy Consular General, Federal Republic of Japan. Your turn, sir.
Good morning, everybody. Good morning. Mr. Vice Chancellor, Professor Ugundipe, Professor Akingbola, Professor Akingbola, Professor Alias, ladies and gentlemen, and distinguished guests in this room, as well as online on Zoom. I am personally very honored to take part in this inauguration and public lecture to commission to the Center for Genomics as representative of the government of the Federal Republic of Germany here in Lagos. Today, I will symbolically hand over the research equipment donated by the Alexander von Humboldt Foundation to the Department of Molecular Biology and Biotechnologies. A year and a half ago, most of us non-scientists would have not known what this equipment that was donated to Unilag is being used for, or what it stands for. Now, 1.5 years later, into a worldwide pandemic that shook all of our lives around the globe, we know how important this real-time PCR detection system is not only for your scientific work, for the academic world, but for all of our lives. It shows the tremendous importance of science, and it shows that only through worldwide scientific cooperation and collaboration, we are able to progress as humankind and to combat the challenges of today's world. If this truly worldwide pandemic has taught us around the globe anything, I believe that it is the truth that we need more global scientific research, we need more collaboration and not less. It is through science that we were able to save thousands of lives worldwide. The work of the Alexander von Humboldt Foundation and this equipment grant is another great success in the very well-established German-Nigerian cooperation in the field of research and academics. The Alexander von Humboldt Foundation, a close partner of the Consulate General of Germany, continues to support Nigerian scientists and scientific institutions in all areas of academia, but at the moment especially in the field of research on the coronavirus. I was very happy to hear from the remarks that the professor gave before me that this is a really long-standing collaboration between Germany, University of Lagos, and other academic institutions in Nigeria. And I can tell you that during my tenure here as Deputy Consul General, I personally will try to do my best to foster this relationship and to build it even further in the coming years. Ladies and gentlemen, the German Consulate General in Lagos congratulates you for securing this grant and for your hard and dedicated scientific work. I would also like to commend the University of Lagos on the whole for its great achievements in education and innovation. I have to admit some personal things. It's today my first time on this campus because I just arrived to Nigeria. What an honor it is to be here on such an important day, to represent the Consulate General, but also to see the size of this campus, the amount of people that are here. I have to say I'm really impressed, and I will come back again. Now, that said, I would like to wish all of you a very successful inauguration today, a great and interesting public lecture, and I wish this center all success in its coming endeavors. Thank you and stay safe.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ernst. It's a pleasure to also have you. I'm sure you'll get a chance to go around the whole of the university. Please let's give another round of applause. Let me quickly recognize the Deputy Director of the Center, Professor Lecture. Good morning, ma'am. It's a pleasure to have you. The Director of Institute of Maritime Studies, Professor Matthew Ilori. It's a pleasure to have you. In the house this morning is the Dean of the Faculty of Clinical Sciences, Professor Shade Akingbola. We recognize him. The Dean of the Faculty of Dental Sciences, Professor Da Costa. Thank you so much. Thank you very much. Once again, let me quickly say it's an hybrid meeting. We recognize all those who are online, all those who have joined us. I'm sure it's going to be a beautiful day today. Now to the opening remark by the Vice Chancellor. But I know this will be taken physically here by the DVC Academic and Research, Professor William Fantos. Please a round of applause.
The Deputy Vice Chancellor of Development Services, Professor Ayodele Senua, Deans of faculties here present, Dean of Clinical Sciences, Dean of Dental Science, all directors here present, the director of this center, Professor Akingbola, the Deputy Consul General, Mr. Alex Ellis, the guest lecturer of today, Professor Akingbola and Professor study areas. All faculty members here present, and the students of summer school this year, welcome you to this summer school of 2021, being from this center. I'd like to thank the director and his team for the good job they are doing to make this summer school an annual one, despite the problems that are in the country. They continue to do this. I congratulate the department or the center for making it possible. From what you have heard from the director, you can see that the center is doing very well, and the university did not make any mistake of creating this center, because we will have lost a lot of things if this center is not in existence. The center has done very well during this brief period in which you are created. And one of the very good things they've done is that they were accredited to be a center for COVID diagnosis, which is a great thing that they've done, which I need to congratulate them for. The center also has been able to obtain several grants, national and international grants, that is giving them opportunity to carry out their duties very well. And because they are doing very well, DAAD and German Consular General in Nigeria has also supported them. If they've not done the other one, they wouldn't be able to obtain the others. Because it is when you are doing well that people will support you. If you have not lifted your hands, nobody will lift you up. So I'd like to thank the department, the center, and the Consular General for the good work they are doing to make sure that the center is in very good operation. Centers are created when we see that they are very active. A center will start by, first of all, starting as a cluster. And when they function very well as a cluster, then they are elevated to be the center. Therefore, people cannot move from zero to a center. The center must be functioning before we can make them to become center. And for them being able to be a center, we are very happy to support them if we have created them. And we are happy that having been supported after they are created, they are doing very well. So I thank the director and all the deputy directors who have other assignments, but despite that, they are finding time to do what they have to do. Summer school is a way of empowering the upcoming scientists. This is what all of them should have traveled to Germany. They should have traveled to England to go and have a very good time there and be able to have this kind of opportunity. But I thank the center for bringing it to them here, where they don't need to go too far to see that they are all training them, to show that they too can be maximum they can be. When they are trained in Germany, they won't know the opportunity that they too themselves can be empowered enough to be a trainer like themselves. All they need to do when they take all their lead given in this summer school in and they move from there, train themselves, then they can become like our invited guests over time. So this is a very good opportunity given to you right here in Nigeria, and I hope that you are going to grab it with your two hands, like I be saying here in Nigeria. You have heard that the amount of money that should be paid has been seriously subsidized due to the work of the center, what they are doing. If not, you would have known how much it would have cost you to pay the real price, plus the cost of traveling, cost of accommodation, cost of visa, and all of them together. So 50,000 is just to show your seriousness and not the cost of the training. In any case, how much does it cost to see these people that are seated here? So when people say that they are paying school fees, and I wonder that how much do you pay to see 10 professors in one semester? And then you say you are paying school fees. So let me also talk about the accreditation of the center. The center being accredited is due to very good work that is done by the director, coming for requests every time, especially when you are given a place that was not fitted for any research. And they did a very good work up to elevate it to the point in which they can be accredited. This is a very good thing they've done. Let me congratulate you again, because to us, you have made the University of Lagos to be on the map in terms of genomic research that is focused. So from this center now, when they are talking about genomics, this is a good opportunity to put University of Lagos on the map. Let me also go to thank the German embassy, represented by the Consular General, and represented by the Consular General here. I'm happy that you are here, coming here straight as a brand new Consular General, and you are starting a very, very good place. University of Lagos, University of first choice and the nation's prize. And if you think there are several people on campus, it's because the students are not in campus. When the students are on campus, we will see the number. We are about 56,000 strong, and which about 35,000 of them are undergraduates. So those who are on campus right now are only postgraduate students who can do social distancing enough to be able to continue their studies. Meanwhile, our studies are going on online until such a time that we can see that it will be safe to bring them back. The Vice Chancellor's vision for research is well known, and that has been seen from the way NRF, National Research Fund, has been able to assist us. And the strong support for Research and Innovation Office has helped the members of the faculty to package their research grants request very well to be able to achieve a lot of research grants. Last year, 2020, University of Lagos came first in the National Research Fund by having 19 of our research grants approved for funding. We submitted about 103 proposals, out of which nationally, and about 19 of them were funded. This 2021, I am informed that we are coming second, and all of you can note that last year we were disturbed by different kinds of things. But thank God, we are really fresh here now. So we hope that the next call, all of you here present will apply, and let us go back to our first position, because we don't want to get second position. Anybody who is standing, you have to say you should be careful so that it doesn't get complacent, less informed. So we don't want to move from second to third position, we want to go back up. So those who are going to do it, it's not the Vice Chancellor. The Vice Chancellor can only support you, and can be sure the Vice Chancellor support, 100% support, to make sure that our proposals that we get funded will increase, and we can get back up to this position. let me thank the lecturers who came all the way from their own universities to come and assist Nigeria by making this a very good summer school that will fill that position, that whatever you want to go and do abroad can be done here. So I thank you very much, sirs, for coming, especially during this time when everybody wants to stay in their homes. So what is left now is that the Vice Chancellor is on another assignment and has asked me to assist him. He will join us about 11:45 for the commissioning of the center, so that you will see he is committed to it. But like the higher you go in the system, you know that there are several things that will bully you in different ways. I'm supposed to be there too, and another one which I have to take down because of this. So he will be here at about 11:40. I thank you all for coming, and I wish you a very good summer. Thank you very much.
We will go straight ahead to the keynote address. And like I said, the topic this morning is COVID-19 vaccines, any science behind the myth. And to give the keynote address, I have the singular pleasure to tell us that we have in the house already Professor Teddy Adias, Vice Chancellor of Federal University of Turkey, Bayelsa State. He is a professor. Sir, please kindly be upstanding. He's a professor. Keep clapping. He's a professor of hematology and blood transfusion. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, he's the Vice Chancellor of Federal University of Turkey, Nigeria. His core responsibility is to provide leadership to the university around the development of academics, research, regional and international initiatives and engagements. He holds the terminal degree of Doctor of Philosophy degree, PhD, in immunohematology from the River State University, previously called River State University of Science and Tech, Port Harcourt, as well as the postgraduate fellowship of the West African Postgraduate College of Medical Laboratory Sciences, Institute of Biomedical Science, London, and Medical Laboratory Science Council of Nigeria. He is a member of the Board of Trustee of the West African Postgraduate College of Medical Laboratory Science, Hematology and Blood Transfusion, Scientist Society of Nigeria, and International Association of Mentors and Quality Improvement Experts. He is an experienced administrator and holds the fellowship of the Corporate Administration Institute of Nigeria. Please, I am glad to present to us Teddy Charles Adias, Professor of Hematology, Vice Chancellor of Federal University.
Chair of Education, Vice Chancellor of our University, represented the DVCs of our university, with our regards to other deans of faculties, directors of academic programs, the guest speaker, distinguished Professor Richard Akingbola, and my good friend, my very senior, Professor Liam Akile, members of the organizing committee, esteemed participants, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you. There are two things that have installed myself as a person, several for the society. The two remain utmost. One of which is the assault and the affluence of microorganisms. The second is the intrusions of non-science for the domain of science. While I was preparing this morning, I attended a meeting. It was shared, organized by the World Council of Microbes. I'm sure that was part of the reason we're here today. It was shared by the Emperor of Microbes, I'm sure you know that. It was shared by Richard. In the opening remark of this conversation, Richard was very furious. Furious in the sense that a lot of microbes are violated. They are called, they agreed in their previous meetings. And that above all things, for the existence is the continuous existence of man. He spent time to review the COVID-19 virus, having backlashed Ebola virus and other viruses, including Lassa fever. He had asked them that they should be humble to learn from him. That for the quest he had, that several years past the point of entry, and man has failed to notice his present. A period of time in which he had entered the human system, where most of the routine testing methods failed. I'm sure we know it's called the window period. Until that period, he still had the capacity of propagating himself to other hosts. He looked at COVID-19 and said, why have you done so much evil to our common dinner table? You have held men, you've killed a lot of them. Rebuked Ebola, he did the same thing several years ago. You look at Lassa fever, he said yes, you people have done the same thing. And spent time to praise the likes of Staphylococcus. Man felt he had conquered you with the advent of penicillin. But he went back about new proteins of resistance. And here come the methicillin resistant strains. He spent time to praise Staphylococcus to the extent that even all the water parks in the country, the advertisement had been that Alhaji Dr. Jibril can cure Staphylococcus. Mama Abiodun cure Staphylococcus. A lot of herbalists have been able to enter the domain of modern medicine. And he said that must stop. If we decimate the population of the earth, we will equally not survive. And so, do not do what you are doing. And so today, it is my pleasure to extend my gratitude to the organizers of this event for finding me worthy to speak and deliver the keynote address. The theme of this lecture is that because of the level of information, the misinformation that trailed our news groups, both social media and otherwise. As a scientist and academic, my part is a part of truth, and this we call facts. The facts and truths are logical analysis based on facts that can be verified. Today, we have here in our midst a distinguished professor, I'm saying it for the first time, even though I've met several of his works. Distinguished Professor Nicola Richard. When I was offered information to speak, I felt I was coming to deliver the address. So I prepared for an address, not a lecture. And so when I met my friend, Professor Akingbola, this morning, I told him, I'm sure you must have misled me in believing that I was coming to deliver address, not a lecture. So my thinking then was that I need to take permission from Professor Richard. I'm sure the permission is granted. I can have at least a bite on the team. But the issues today are the two concepts that offers COVID-19 that I call double whammy: the science and the myths. The science, as we know, is knowledge of facts, of principles that are gained through structured, we call it structured systematic observation that cannot be achieved except it is done through experimentation, observations that are experimented. And the hallmark of science is that a trail, inventory trail, is established to the extent that others can follow in this footpath, in the confirmation. But the other side of it is the myths. And these are, in most cases, very rational. Most times are falsehood. But then they are collections of belief that are used in most times to explain phenomena without proofs. And so the issue today is that the organizers have been able to drag me and Professor Akingbola into a context of investigating a non-science with scientific adventures, and which I call as myths. We are aware that COVID-19 is real. First was noticed in Wuhan, China, and that was about 2019. As of today, and still counting, over 4 million persons have died. And we know too well that the US is the hardest hit of all the countries in the world. There have been contexts of myths that are built up in society, and these have offered a lot of contradictions between science and faith. And no more have we seen in this scenario apart from the 5G, where a lot of men of God, men with authority, abandon their calling to speak science on the altar of God and mercy. We're told how in our society, without me calling names, declarations were made that 5G was responsible for the emergence of COVID-19. Indeed, it is part of the scheming of the devil, consonant to the book of Revelation and Submission, that it is just a means to an end to ensure that the mark of the beast is established firmly. But again, I need to mention that aside this is the issues of what my friend will speak so much about today, the issues of vaccines. But I need to add that vaccines came to prominence by the work of Edward Jenner in 1798. Vaccines were made popular by English passion years after. Vaccines are important in saving life, and it is felt medically or biologically that the entrance of any particulate matter that has up to 4 properties, one, into the body, will be sent by the body as non-self. And there is substance that are classified as non-self that have protein as components or conjugate of proteins that are specific, that has high molecular weight, that has gained entrance, and that are specific. And the body look at them as non-self and call them as antigens. And once antigens are present in the system, there is a need for formations of other sets of protein, which we call antibodies. When the body senses an infectious particle, like viruses, the ultimate aim of the body is to form these proteins called antibodies. The protein antibodies are formed following the experiences we call them the primary immune response that results in the generation of memory, secondary immune response. In all this, the hallmark is the formation of antibodies. What vaccine does is to enable us to form these antibodies without first experiencing the infectious agents. And that is the reason why we are here today. And so in all vaccines are biological products produced by the body in response. Antibodies are biological products produced by the body in response to the occurrence of foreign proteins called antigens. Vaccines are biological applications that provides acquired immunity. Immunities are either passive or innate, adaptive, and acquired. And so, in all cases, the vaccine would mimic the disease itself and help the organism to form the proteins for the purpose of rendering the appropriate immune response. And so if vaccines are produced, they are produced through very firm scientific principles that we call standardized. And so for them to be produced, for use, they must undergo a lot of checkpoints. The first will be the preclinical phase in which they arrange the animal experimentations and model of testing for safety, efficacies, and the rest of it. If they pass through the primary clinical trials, then we'll go straight to the clinical trials. Then you have various phases again. In this case, it is more important to look at safety, efficacy, and even the doses. Having passed through various phases of clinical trials, the vaccine is subjected to regulatory reviews. In Nigeria, we have NAFDAC as one of the statutory bodies that have the responsibility for reviewing efficacies of vaccine. And so I did mention that vaccines are produced through processes that are standardized. And so for COVID-19 vaccine that we stand today, in most cases in condemnation, it went through these very basic processes of production. And so we have the Johnson & Johnson, the Pfizer, BioNTech, the Moderna, and other Oxford AstraZeneca vaccine. But of importance is the issues of how these vaccines are produced, in which my colleague and friend will speak more. They say that I've taken permission from him so I can take a little bite from what he's going to speak to us today. I still believe the permission is still granted. Vaccines are produced in the modern forms or in the elementary forms as proposed by the inventors. The vaccines are produced as presenting either the wicked form of the organism or the dead form of the organism. In this case, they are called toxoids. And so when the body sees them, the body looks at them with the antigen dominants are able to note them as antigens and form antibodies. But the ones we talk about today are obviously new technologies. And we have had several of them. They are messenger RNA vaccines. And the benefits of this, again, my friend will speak about it. But on the whole, even with the messenger RNA vaccines, the basic thing is to teach the body how to respond to form proteins in the absence of infection itself. so today, having fallen into the trap of Professor Akiloye, we're here to speak about science of myths. And so, my apologies to the organizers is that they've changed the titles of myself and Professor Richard from being what we are to what we now call ourselves as mythologists, since we now be compelled to study myths as it comes to it. To conduct the science of myths, one needs to understand not just the myth itself, we need to understand allegories, metaphors, and controls and manipulations, and that is what makes propel with these concepts are able to hold sway to the society. But among these concepts that I find more important is the functionalist approach and the study of myth, especially as it relates to social anthropologists. And this has to do with our ability to go into the society, have field views, and direct observations of the effects of a phenomenon within the society. And that's what social anthropologists do, using their functionality approach. And so, for us to achieve this, I have proposed a forward-looking direction that will employ the problem analysis tree. And as can be seen in the next slide. In this tree, for any problem, there has to be a cause and effect. So you have the root cause. And so we're going to do what they do in social anthropologists. You're looking at the root cause of what we are about to look at. And my thinking, my hypothesis, is that the problems that are brought about the myths are derived largely from the various of religious and political communities, the leaders. And it was felt that COVID-19 is not just a disease, it is a disease that has been created basically by man for the purpose of achieving an aim. In this case, they have labeled that indeed it was very interesting, powerful persons in the society, which are called Antichrist. If you look at Christian religion, if you look at even in Islam, the concept of Antichrist is true. And that having established the root cause, I look at the core problem. And the core problem I looked at is the issues of religion, politics, and the balance of power, since both religion and politics aim at one finality, the balance of power. And out of this came about several myths. I have just looked at the five that you can see there. The vaccine can be trusted because it was rushed as one of the myths. The side effects of the vaccines are even more deadly than the disease. A DNA will be changed, our DNA will be changed. In fact, the vaccines currently will change our DNA. And that the messenger RNA technology that is used for the productions of most of the vaccines for COVID-19 are obviously brand new methods. In fact, it was presented for the purpose of achieving the problems as postulated by the quest of the Antichrist. Indeed, the vaccine contains implants, chips, tracking devices. In fact, one of the YouTube videos I watched, she said, you take a magnet close to where you have the vaccine that it will be trapped. And since you have northern poles and southern poles embedded within, that's 0.5 mils of the vaccine. But are they true? We look, next slide please. We look at this propelled by all this that I mentioned part of it earlier. It's, and further to the root cause analysis, is a reminder again of the 5G debate and the clustering of persons like Bill Gates You see him down there with the horns, as the devil himself, the Antichrist. But all right, so that is the devil himself. And all the protests that terrorize in the US, including Canada. That's in fact, these are the Antichrist. And so, let's go down to the roots of our meeting today. Next slide. Now, the issues are the vaccine interferes with the human DNA. The vaccine interferes with the human DNA. And the messenger RNA techniques for COVID-19 vaccines are brand new. Research rushed to develop the vaccine so it cannot be trusted. The vaccine contains several implants, microchips, especially the ones that can give you the sign of the beast. You can get the virus from the vaccination itself. The side effects of the vaccines are many. But looking from the first, that the vaccine can interfere with human DNA. I'm sure that you must have heard this. It is not true. From my belief. If you look at the basic science in which we have been called into unity, we have the concept of central dogma in biochemistry, molecular biology, and how genetic information flows. It flows this way, from DNA to RNA to protein. There has not been any regards for genetic information to flow from RNA to DNA. It has always flowed from DNA to RNA to protein. So you have the transcriptions down to translation. And so it is my belief firmly that it is not true and it is not possible. That the RNA technology for COVID-19 vaccine is brand new. I also say this is false because the methods have been in development for well over 20 years, for 2 decades. But it is also true that this is the very first time it has been used. But the development of this technology has been old. That the vaccine process was rushed, and so it cannot be trusted. And I still believe this is not true. COVID-19 vaccine went through the pre-clinicals with animal models. It went through clinical models with the phases. It went through regulatory oversights before they were approved. What I want to believe in this regard is that because of the pandemic and the level of mobility, a lot of commitments, scientific resources were put in place to rush the processes. But that does not invalidate the process itself. The vaccine contains substances as implants. Again, I said this is not true. Vaccines do not contain implants. Vaccines will rather contain items that we have called over time as adjuvants. There have not been any vaccine that do not have adjuvants. Adjuvants was simple, and the role is to ensure that the vaccine has the best impact for absorptions within the system. I can get COVID-19 from the vaccine. Again, that is not true. The COVID-19 vaccines do not contain the virus. They only contain messenger RNA. And the RNA is for the purpose of teaching the cells to respond to forming spike proteins, or forming antibodies to the spike protein. And so we do not need to encounter the COVID-19 itself before we form this protein. And so by the time you're encountering the COVID-19, you already have enough immune response to counter them. And so what the vaccine does is to see how we can improve our herd immunity within the society. The side effects are dangerous. If they are dangerous, have they killed anybody? With all the reports in the world, I do not think that the fatality to the side effect of the vaccine have been up to 0.00010, I mean 1, if they are really true to be associated with the vaccine. But these myths are not the problems we have today. The newest is that for anybody who have taken the vaccine, will have how many years to live? 2 years. It means that from today, Professor Akingbola will want to gather back here in the next 2 years to confirm how many persons who have taken the vaccines are still alive. And so before I go back to my seat, I want to add that and answer the question, is there science behind the myths? Is there science behind the myths trailing the COVID-19 vaccine? I dare say no. Science and myths cannot coexist. It is not possible. When Professor Akingbola asked me to speak about this, I know too well that as a scientist that he is, he knows that science means truth, myths, sentiment, and it is not possible for science to validate, or myths to validate science. The other way, we can use science to test the myths. But with the evidence we have, I do not think that it is true. I am also going to say that I have taken the vaccine, I have taken my 2 doses, and I have not seen the side effects that I have noticed. I also have to ask that I want to beg forgiveness of Professor Richard that has spoken into his area of vaccine production. Thank you for forgiving me. I need to add that COVID-19 vaccination and vaccines that establish scientific tradition gone through the processes that we have known in science and wishes whatever you do to document it and so that it can be followed. The processes must be available for people to replicate, and that is the beauty of science. Let me add that when I was in secondary school some years ago, it was first. We were told about Avogadro's hypothesis. And today, for those who are young, will know that they have not met that as a hypothesis. It is a theory today. And so, the issues of messenger RNA vaccination will be one of the hypotheses we have today as one of the mainstays for vaccination, and say that in years to come, it will have been established as one of the models for all vaccination.
Program Officer and Lead of Pneumonia Clinical Studies at the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation in Seattle, USA. Trustee of the Sabin Vaccine Institute, Washington, D.C., USA. Professor Akingbola is a member of the World Health Organization Afro-Regional Immunization Technical Advisory Committee Group, RITAG. He has written 5 book chapters. He has co-authored 244 publications in peer-reviewed. And let me quickly say that as of the 21st of July 2021, Professor Akingbola has 31,859 reads, 18,410 citations. That's research date. As of that said date, his H index is 67 on Scopus. The overall direction of his research work is aimed at prevention of pneumonia and reduction of childhood mortality. I have the privilege, the singular honor, to present Professor Richard Akingbola, FINLS, MSc, PhD, FRC Path, FRC Pathon, FAS, FAS.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. And let me just say, I'm fully vaccinated. So, I'd like to thank the BBC as being represented here, the Deputy Consular, all the BBCs and the Danes and everybody. Can I just say, as we say in Nigeria, all protocols observed? Thank you. That saves me in trouble. So I'm going to use this. And to thank the last speaker because, well, he was talking about all the mates, and I'm grateful he did that. So he has said all the mates, and I'm going to talk about all the sciences. So, should I use my computer? Is it working? It's the first slide? Okay. So that's my first slide. So basically, I will be talking about vaccine production. That's what actually the director of the center. My apology, actually. I'd like to really appreciate the director of the center for inviting me to speak here. And during his remarks, and also the remarks by the BBC, I'm so proud of him. I don't know if he's in the room. Because you know what you hear, and I can just say that because I'm Nigerian, because what you hear is complaint from many academics that there is no research funding, there is no money. It's complaint all the time. What I'm hearing this morning is that he's getting grants, he's getting support from the VC, the deans. He is working, and he's publishing paper that is recognizable everywhere, that is comparable to what you see elsewhere. And that's why he's able to get money or grant from NIH. I worked with Bill Gates Foundation for about 3 years. And I've also, one time I received where they give grants. There is money for research. What we are not doing actually, I think, sufficiently enough, is competing to win the grant to bring the money to do the work in Nigeria. So I'd like to appreciate him and I'd like to congratulate him. Please give him a round of applause. Okay. So thank you. So I will be talking about. So I will be talking basically, that's the topic I was given. So it's vaccine production and from research and development to manufacturing. I was actually zeroing in on what I've been hearing in Nigeria recently. Not surprisingly, because we are interested in making our own vaccines so that we can make vaccines available to people. But what do we need to do to get there is some of the things that I'm talking about this morning. My next slide, please. So that is my overview, the things that I will cover. COVID-19 vaccines, current global uptake. And I'll talk about COVID-19 vaccines, what are they and how are they made.
Where did you leave it?
Go back to slide 2.
Yes.
And then you should
Just leave it. You should double click on this.
Can I just say the next slide and then I go on? Okay. Okay, next. So those are the topics that I will cover. Next slide, please. Okay, so what are value of vaccination is what I want to start with. And as you will see here, and I'm quoting from WHO documentation, with the exception of safe water, no other modality, not even antibiotics as good as they are, has had such a major effect on mortality. Another similar quote from a popular book on vaccinology that says only clean drinking water rivals vaccination in its ability to save lives. So I don't joke with my vaccine because I know what they do. And so there was no need to convince me to take my 2 doses of COVID-19 vaccine and be protected. The next slide, please. But despite that, despite the value of vaccine and vaccination, look at what is happening now globally. We have succeeded in making vaccines, COVID-19 vaccines at a record time. But if you look at the distribution of vaccines, the light grade is less than 1%. And what we're seeing there is that most African countries actually, the vaccines are not getting there. So there is going on right now, inequitable distribution of these two, the only tool actually that we have at the moment that can stop us from dying from this dangerous disease. The next slide, please. And this is just to say that, so if you put numbers into those vaccines that have been delivered, in fact, about 380 billion doses have been delivered so far. Only 1.5% of those have been given in Africa. In Nigeria, our country, 3.94 million doses have been given. And in fact, that is 0.7% of our population that's been vaccinated. We need to vaccinate 60 to 70% of Nigerians to actually be protected from the disease. So we have a long way to go. And really food for thought for us. What we need to do so that we don't find ourselves in the same situation when another pandemic is on the horizon. So vaccines are biological products which can prevent diseases that can be dangerous or even cause death. They work with our body's natural defenses to safely develop protection against specific diseases. Once introduced into the body, the vaccine helps our immune system to produce antibodies and cellular components. So that after getting vaccinated, there is protection against the disease without having to get the disease itself. Unlike most medicines, which treat or cure diseases, vaccines prevent them. And as they say, prevention is better than cure. And in our own setting anyway, we don't usually have the drugs anyway. So I think the best thing for us in our system is actually vaccination, is prevention. And it's not surprising that is what I've committed my life to working on for the past 20 years. And I can see the result. If you look at the maps in terms of childhood mortality and morbidity, if you compare what was happening in the 90s with what is happening now, actually that's been reduced by more than 50%. So vaccinations actually does work. It saves lives. The next slide, please. Okay, so how are vaccines made? And the last speaker actually has mentioned some of them, but here it is graphically. There are 3 principal ways of making vaccines. You can use the whole cell itself, which is what Jenna did in the beginning. And you can kill it, you can add chemical to attenuate or inactivate the product, and use the whole cell, which is what you use in the early days. The problem is they are reactogenic. The side effects with whole cells vaccines are much more terrible than if you use fragments, the next one. So if you use a part of it, you reduce reactogenicity, but then you also reduce the ability of the antigen to generate antibodies or immune system. To enhance that, that's why you add adjuvant, so that you can actually increase its ability to produce antibodies and cellular responses. And then the last one is to actually use genetic material. And I think that should be of interest to this center that is focused on genomics. Because we can do sequences now, we can actually look at a battery or characteristics of the organism or virus or bacteria before we actually move to the next stage of choosing what might be the target to use as a vaccine. So vaccine R&D, If you're following the stories and what you see here in the news, on television, and what have you now in Nigeria because of COVID-19 vaccine, we want to make our own vaccine, we want to make our own vaccines. We want to make our own vaccine, but how do we make it? It takes time. It takes time. And that's what I think I want to draw attention to this morning. If you're going to forget everything that I will say, but remember that if we want to make vaccines against the next epidemic, we have to start now, not when we get into the middle of it. And that's why a center like this is actually necessary, that they start thinking about hypothesizing and imagining, anticipating what might happen next, and start preparing for it now. Well, to make a vaccine, the journey itself is complex and it takes a long time and it's risky because it doesn't always work. Understanding the structure of the virus or the bacterium, you need to understand that. And that's where sequencing can help us. Vaccines contain harmless form of the bacteria or virus that causes the disease. And the virus or bacteria can be killed, like I mentioned in the last slide, or use a part of it, or weakened or broken down into small parts that can use to trigger the immune response that you're looking for. Well, so for working out how to do that in practice, it's not easy. It's a hard job. And it's because it needs understanding all the above and selecting appropriate technologies. So you make the vaccine, you can actually construct an antigen. So as a scientist or an investigator in Unilag, you can make an antigen in your lab, a potential vaccine. It doesn't make it a vaccine. Because that doesn't make it get into the body of the people that will use it on the street. How will you transfer it? What is the technology? How will you give it to people? I have friends in the university that have several antigens in their freezers. But they will never get out of the freezer. Because the process that it takes before making the thing in your lab, before you go on to television to say you have made a vaccine, to getting it into an individual, it's a long process. It's arduous and it's also expensive. And we're going to get there. And once you get the construct and understand the technology to transfer, which is what you do at preclinical level, then you need a series of clinical studies to ensure it is effective and safe. Those two words. It is effective and it is safe. Remember you give vaccines to prevent. So you give vaccines to healthy people. Usually, primarily, there are a few vaccines that are used for therapy, but most vaccines are actually for prevention. So you give them to healthy people. So you don't want to kill them. And so there's zero tolerance. There's zero tolerance for mistake when you're making vaccine as compared to when you're making drugs. Because you give drugs to sick people anyway. And unfortunately, some of them will die anyway. But not to healthy people when you're going to a school or to my house to give me a vaccine and then come and kill me in my house. So it is a serious issue and it's important to know that. So the main goals is safety. Safety. In fact, safety first. And the fact that it will be effective. So it's safety, effectiveness about vaccines. If you remember only those two when you leave here today, that's fine. Then you have not missed the lecture. So this is the process. This is the normal traditional development vaccine process. And as you can see, it takes between 10 to 15 years. We're trying to identify, trying to test, trying to figure out which one will work, which will not, and whatever. I will briefly go through that. And so what you have is in the first two blocks, if you like, it's an exploratory science. So you do your sequences, and you see determinants of like 3,000 antigens or possible antigen that you can look at. The antigen, they are antigenic, but that doesn't mean they are immunogenic when you put them into individuals. So how do you select which one out of these batteries that you see? So you need bioinformatics, you need all sorts of things. So to just make a quick remark there again that vaccinology is a complex, multidisciplinary nature. It's not what somebody just does alone in the corner of his lab. You need other input from other areas. So, and that will take you 2 to 4 years to do. And once you do that, you think you have identified 1 or 2 or 3 potential antigens or targets or possible candidate vaccine. Then I'd like to recognize the VC. Welcome, sir. Once you have identified the antigen and potential candidate vaccine, then you need to do preclinical studies. What do we do in preclinical studies? The animal studies, cell lines, and what have you, that it is capable of doing what you are thinking to do, and some in vitro testing to show that it is not toxic to the cells in the test tubes. And at that point, once you get to this point, you actually need to actually invite regulators to come and see or present your data at that early time to regulators that you want to apply for investigational new drug process. Because they want to make sure that before you take your product to humans, and I'm not sure we're following that particular closely in Nigeria, because when I just see somebody that you say you have a vaccine, my first question is it licensed? Is it as NAFDAC giving you some kind of listing so that you can go to humans? Because you might do damage to them, even the process of investigation. And so we need to do that at that stage. And once we get that, we can then move to, and you have the...
You come to this one.
Oh, I'm sorry. Oh. Okay, I'm sorry. So I need to go through this so that it is clear. So once you've done the preclinical study and you are happy with the data, and that's been verified by some regulators, then you take the next, you do this series of clinical studies. Phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, and I'm going to describe that in a little bit more later. And at that point, when you get efficacy, what we do in efficacy is use our control conditions in the population, where you use 2 arms of people, one arm receiving the product that you're investigating, and one arm receiving a placebo, something that is similar to the product, and you expose them to disease, the outcome. And then over time, then you see what happens in the 2 arms, and then you can say it's efficacy, whether or not it's efficacious. The thing to know there is they are under control conditions. They are not the conditions that you use when you actually go into the population to use the vaccine. In our setting, there are inadequacies because you may have the problem with poaching because it's not stored at the proper temperature, which you make sure happens when you are doing the trial sort factors. So, and so once you do that, and then you have the licensure by the regulator, then you can then spend money to invest on manufacturing, the plants and whatever to make sure you can get that to the public. Okay. Well, the last speaker, when he was talking, he mentioned that one of the information or misinformation about the COVID vaccine is that it was rushed. Within 1 year, we got the vaccine. So were we still maintaining the safety and effectiveness that I mentioned earlier on? So how did that happen? Is what I want to explain here. So it's actually, the one thing that you will notice from the previous slide and this is that all the other ones were happening in sequence. Phase 1, phase 2, phase 3. So you do the investigation, the preclinical studies, and when you get the indication approved, then you do the preclinical study, and then, but here you can see that during preclinical, they were already also in phase 1, phase 2, 3 to collapse to collapse the period that it was required. And that was possible because government and investigators and the regulators came together and an emergency declared by WHO. Thousands of people were dying every day. Risk and benefits. Can we wait for 15 years or 10 years before we get a COVID vaccine? 70% of the world population will be dead. We cannot wait for that. So when we actually bring all those things together, closer, why were we able to do that? You know, it goes back to money. A company will not necessarily do that because, as we will see later, it is capital intensive. And the companies, vaccine manufacturers, are not charitable organizations. Yes, they get money from shareholders, they report to them, and those, if you put your money in a company, you want profit, you want money back. And because they are not able to do that, if you are following the story, the US government, the UK government, the German government, they were willing to put money upfront for a vaccine that may not work. They were willing to tell the company, start preparing, start manufacturing. There were doses already. I'm not going to mention them, but some presidents were boasting that already have millions of doses, even before they knew the vaccine would work. So they bought the risk. They bought the risk from the companies, so the companies can go into it. You know what I'm trying to say is to say it is misinformation to say because the time was shortened that they didn't follow the due process. This is the way it was done. And so because many of those processes that used to go in sequence were brought together and governments were willing to buy off the risk from the companies. They were able to fast track. I think that's what I was looking for, to fast track the process without sacrificing or compromising the safety and effectiveness purposes. So why were we able to do that? Funding, that I was mentioning, government and funding bodies were willing to support upfront. Large-scale manufacturing started even when we were still doing the trials. Volunteers were willing and ready. You know, if it's going to take you many years to recruit, as it normally does under routine conditions, then it's going to take a longer time. The science was ready, and the last speaker mentioned rightly that this is the mRNA activities or research. Last year wasn't the first time it was being done. It's been done for the past 20 years. They've been using it in other areas. Actually, they have actually tried mRNA vaccine for coronavirus, the first one, in 2012 or so, before the current pandemic. So there was a lot of knowledge and information about the process before the advent of the pandemic. And of course, the priority and collaboration was extraordinary. Do you know the vaccine companies don't talk to each other before the pandemic? So you see GSK now working with Sanofi? This is strange. Or Pfizer going to a small biotech company to work together? Well, maybe that was even happening in the part of big companies because they are competitors. So you don't, but all this disappeared because of the interest of everybody, because of the mortality that was being recorded. Okay, next slide. I'm sorry, Professor, how many minutes more do I have? 5, okay, I'm going to rush a bit. So these are the clinical phases. Phase 1, phase 2, and phase 3, which phase 3 takes you to the efficacy. I wanted to mention here that even after efficacy, when you have released the vaccine to the population, you still do studies, you still monitor. One thing to mention at this juncture also is that the 3 major vaccines that are being used now for, actually most of them, none of them have been formally approved. They are all being used under emergency use authorization. They are safe, they are effective, but they are still collecting data because we don't know all about the vaccine just now. And for the regulator to say emphatically that we are given approval, they need to meet all those gaps. Additionally, apart from those things that I have described, there are other things that you need to do also to get the vaccine to the market. The route of administration, the thermostability and storage. First, the vaccine is stored at -70. Are we going to be able to deliver that in a setting in Africa, in Nigeria, for example? That is storage at -17 from the storage to when you deliver the vaccine to the individual to maintain the potency. So when you are constructing vaccine, if you are an investigator in Nigeria, where we need to be involved, I will be thinking about that when I'm thinking about making vaccine in Nigeria, that we don't have the energy to go change to support. So will I be working on the vaccine actually that you can store at room temperature? You know, food for thought. And of course, the ease of manufacturing. What about costing? You know, which again is something we need to think about when we want to start making vaccine in Nigeria. Who's going to buy it from us? If it's cheaper from India or from Europe. I mean, if we are going to buy generators and we are going to make the vaccine, the cost might go up. Even Nigerians then they prefer to buy vaccine from elsewhere and not the one that we're making. And so we are now competitively disadvantaged. And there are things we need to think about when we talk about these things. And of course, what about social political engagement? What about bringing anthropologists? Why are people refusing vaccines? Before you even introduce it to them, in what form would they like to have it? Can you bring the community together as you're making the vaccine so that they are participating in discussion? So that when the vaccine is ready, they are willing to use it. You need to develop assays, but you need to do a lot of groundwork to bring people together and who are willing to work together and collaborate. You need 12 to 18 months of talking. If you see the dossier that you need to present to regulators, they will scrutinize every bit of it. Your method, the procedure, your QCs. That would be like 70,000 QCs from what I've seen for one vaccine to make sure that you're not creating danger. And I think I mentioned that the 70% of production dedicated to quality control of the activities. 6% probability of market entry. So after all those, actually, particularly with the commercial, the big companies, they are successful only about 6% of getting them into marketability that will be profitable. And look at the cost. Look at the cost. 374 billion pounds. I don't know what is that in billion naira. It's job breaking. That is called for development of vaccine. And then what about the manufacturing facility itself? And you don't use one facility for the other. They are specific. What you use in producing cholera vaccine is not what you use in the mechanism, the platform will differ from one to another. So at this global, yes. Are we willing to do it? That's the question mark. I think I've wow. Thank you. That's it.
Thank you very much, sir. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I think we can give him another round of applause. While Professor Akingbola was taking us through vaccine and vaccine production, the Director of Academic Planning, Professor Richard Akingbola. Please, a round of applause for that. And it's my joy and pleasure this morning to tell us that the Vice Chancellor of our university, Professor Oluwatoyin Temitayo Odeba, is now missing. Please a round of applause. Let me call the director of the center, Professor Akingbola, to come and present something to Professor Akingbola. Professor, please.
Again, the Vice Chancellor for coming around. Let me quickly say before the presentation, all the people online that have been contacting us about, we know I know this is an interesting topic, and many of us want to contribute and ask questions. But because we are out of time, and we want the Vice Chancellor to proceed straight to the Commission, please, you can interact with us on the center website. And the two presentations will be available there live, so you can continue to interact with the center, with the website, and we'll continue to attend to the question. We will also give Professor Akingbola the access to the website so that he can respond to you directly. So please, on behalf of the Center for Genomics of Non-Communicable Diseases and Cluster Care, I want to present this topic to Prof, who I thought was actually in the United States, but I was shocked to see him coming this morning. This is a man that has dedicated his life to the production of vaccine, globally working with GlaxoSmithKline. Please, I will thank you for I was applauding the University of Lagos for the current contract going on with Illumina, and I am proud that we have you as ambassador at this time, because I believe by the time we get the sequencer, we will be in line with the whole world and we'll be able to join the network for monitoring of the variants. Thank you again for that discussion with Illumina. Thank you, sir. Before we proceed to the Commissioner, may I invite my Vice Chancellor to just say something to the participants. These are the this year participants to the.
You think this year says something like that? So let's go for the commission. How will we see more of you?
Well, maybe the people on the fight table will just back in this place and take some pictures.
Alex, can we see that again? Let's remove the protocol for now. Okay. What are you doing, comments?
Yes.
Faculty representative.
Please, can delete it for me? Oh, all right. What do you want us to do now?
We
We'll unveil, we'll cut, we'll do it all.
You will speak to the glory of God, sir.
We will do that. We will commission this to the glory of God. For the benefit of mankind. Inauguration of the Center for Genomics of Non-Communicable and Molecular Diagnostic Laboratory of the CGNPH by the Vice Chancellor, University of Lagos, Professor C. Oluwatoyin Temitayo. For the propagation of scientific discovery and the benefit of mankind to the glory of God.
Amen.
Okay.
Thank you.
This is for this year. Okay.
This one was the first one.
Yes, the first.
This is sanitization machine to sanitize.
Yeah.
This is from Mustang.
Yes.
This is also donated by the German. This came with it together. This was all purchased by the Techfund grant, the Federal Republic of Nigeria. This is from the government of the United States of America. This is also from Humboldt. This is the gel documentation. This is where we observe all the genes. We put them on gels.
That's camera.
It's camera. So you can manipulate the visualization actually. Inside the oral pandemic, the Vice Chancellor approved the positioning, so the money from the University of Lagos also positioned this place for the COVID test. And then we have the doping, this is where we remove all and then we dress here, this is the dressing room. So this is our safety area. This is the most sensitive department. This is where we inactivate the samples and extract. So this is valve safety 3. So this lab is, you can see that it's called from lab with UV light. So it's valve safety 3. And the real PCR is done in the other room. And this is the new machine that was given by the federal government panel. So this can cover all the 4 genes of the COVID. And it's 45,000 euros. But it came from you, so thank you again. And of course, this came from Techfund. This is where we do the dilution and the mixes. So this is where we diagnose COVID after inactivation in that room. And again, thanks to the VC for giving us the money to do this position.
Not really in use, but you can see that it's being used and it serves a good cause. It serves your work. I'm really happy to see that.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Thank you, sir.
Fantastic.
To the inactivation room, and then you get to the PCR room, and the door there. So that's the food.
Thank you very much.